Human history is a vast tapestry of genius, conquest, and complex geopolitics. At least, that is what textbooks try to sell us to keep us from sinking into utter nihilism. In reality, the fate of the free world and the balance of superpowers have often rested in the hands of bureaucrats possessing a terrifying level of optimism, armed with unlimited budgets and a total absence of practical sense. The Cold War represents the absolute pinnacle of this phenomenon, a blessed era when the most brilliant minds on the planet gathered in secret bunkers to devise plans of a stupidity so monumental that it became almost poetic. Welcome to an era where global paranoia justified the most delusional investments, an era where you encounter French scientists contaminated by their own poultry and NASA engineers brought down by punctuation. But before we witness aerospace science collapse over a simple hyphen, we must first look at the crowning achievement of American counterintelligence. In 1961, the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology came to a remarkable conclusion. Human secret agents are flawed, but domestic felines are the perfect vectors for espionage. This was the birth of Operation Acoustic Kitty, a program born from a profound psychological blindness where Cold War paranoia met absolute bureaucratic incompetence. Convinced that a cat could wander around the Soviet embassy without ever raising suspicion, top officials allocated a colossal budget of $20 million to transform an ordinary quadruped into a mobile listening platform. For 5 years, veterinary surgeons improvised as cybernetic engineers on a gray and white stray cat. They meticulously implanted a miniature microphone into its ear canal, housed a radio transmitter at the base of its skull, and concealed a fine copper wire antenna running all the way down its spine beneath its fur. The first technical obstacle did not come from microchips, but from the fundamental laws of biology. A cat cares absolutely nothing about the geopolitical imperatives of the free world. During the first simulations, as soon as the animal felt the slightest hunger, it simply abandoned its human target to rummage through garbage cans or beg for food. Faced with this blatant refusal to cooperate with American imperialism, the scientists picked up their scalpels once again. They performed a second surgical intervention to permanently short-circuit the neural hunger receptors. The intelligence agency thus created a unique creature, a permanently starving cybernetic organism, psychologically unstable, and possessing a market value higher than a fighter jet of the era. We are in 1967, on Wisconsin Avenue in Washington, D.C. A surveillance van with tinted windows parks discreetly across from a Soviet diplomatic compound. 2 Russian diplomats are talking on a public bench. The technicians open the rear door, place the technological predator on the sidewalk, and activate the tape recorders. America's secret weapon takes 3 steps onto the wet pavement, and is instantly pulverized by a passing yellow checker taxi. A few weeks later, a heavily redacted official memo concluded with cold administrative detachment that the project was cancelled, the device having shown no propensity for practical training. This habit of investing astronomical fortunes into cutting-edge technologies only to watch them collapse against the triviality of daily life is a constant of the human mind, especially when the next machine turns out to be even heavier, more unstable, and tragically dependent on a single neglected detail. Military greatness sometimes demands significant compromises with common sense. In 1962, the French Directorate of Military Intelligence faced a delicate geopolitical puzzle. Monitoring atmospheric dispersion and the ultra-secret installations of the In-Eka site deep in the heart of the Algerian Sahara. All of this had to be done without deploying overly conspicuous aircraft, which risked triggering a major diplomatic incident with a freshly independent Algeria. The elite of strategic engineering then conceived an undetectable and entirely biological reconnaissance system, a highly classified avian program where rigorously trained homing pigeons carried miniature auto-triggering cameras strapped directly to their breastbones. The tragedy of this stroke of genius did not lie in its technical execution, but in the unfortunate tendency of military engineers to strictly compartmentalize their skills. Specialists in aerodynamics and microscopic stealth designed a perfect flight path 20 kilometers upwind, a trajectory completely detached from the realities of nuclear physics and the behavior of a panicked bird. During the Beryl underground test, the rock fractured, instantly releasing a massive plume of toxic gases and radioactive dust. That was the precise moment the feathered patrol was released. Deafened and disoriented by the thermal flash and shockwave, the test subjects did not bypass the danger. They flew straight into it. The bird's plumage then proved to be an electrostatically redoubtable filter, trapping massive concentrations of iodine-131 and plutonium dust. But the conditioning of the French military was an implacable mechanism. Guided by an absolutely infallible homing instinct, the highly irradiated flock covered the necessary distance to return and settle quietly on the command's canvas tents and the mess hall tables. The chaotic and immediate evacuation of the general staff took place to the sound of Geiger counters screaming bloody murder, as officers realized, in total panic, that their own biological spies had just deployed a makeshift, biodegradable, dirty bomb directly over their heads. This year, 1962, definitively established itself as the absolute vintage of technological hubris crushed by the infinitely small. For while France was fleeing its own radioactive foul in the desert, NASA was preparing to launch its very first interplanetary space probe. In the very heart of the Cold War, the American administration can no longer stand watching the Soviets collect orbital successes. It is July 22, 1962, at Cape Canaveral. The United States is preparing to send a message of absolute technological dominance by launching Mariner 1, the very first interplanetary space probe in human history, configured to fly past Venus. The spacecraft is a pure marvel of engineering, propelled by a massive Atlas Agena rocket. The first 90 seconds unfold in absolute perfection. The trajectory is straight, national pride remains intact. Then the system fails. The ground guidance antenna suffers a brutal hardware failure and permanently loses its connection with Cape Canaveral's central computer. In itself, this is not yet an invisible tragedy. A backup mathematical formula is directly integrated into the rocket's airborne computer code to allow it to self-correct autonomously. What the military does not know is the total absence of serious quality control within NASA's newborn software protocols, where programming is treated at the time as a mere secondary administrative task. During the manual transcription of the formulas onto punch cards, an anonymous programmer simply forgot to type a single symbol, a small overbar, translated into the code as a simple hyphen. This minuscule dash had a vital function nonetheless, commanding the machine to ignore and smooth out the normal vibrations of the vehicle's speed. Without it, the backup computer interprets the slightest jolts of the rocket as a major and apocalyptic orbital deviation. The software panics instantly and orders trajectory corrections of unprecedented violence. The jewel of the American space industry begins to twist its path, rolls around, and points its nose directly toward the commercial shipping lanes of the Atlantic Ocean. Exactly 293 seconds after liftoff, faced with a ballistic missile gone mad over a missing hyphen, the base safety officer presses the self-destruction button. Millions of dollars of prestige instantly turn into a rain of glowing debris. History thus remembers that the greatest power in the world saw its space ambition pulverized by the smallest typographical error of the modern era. If the clinical irony of these human trajectories fascinates you as much as it does us, subscribe now to never miss the next shipwrecks of logic.